Welcome to the WNA podcast, hosted by Theo Hale and Ariel Wells.
Great to be here.
We have to get straight into it today because the news cycle has just been, relentless. If you've looked at any screen in the last 12 hours, you know the headline. As of Saturday, January 31st, 2026, the U.S. government is in a partial shutdown.
It happened. It's the scenario everyone was hoping to avoid, but here we are. The Senate, they actually managed to pass a funding deal.
It did their part.
They did, but it just stalled in the House. They couldn't get it over the finish line in time, so the lights are flickering.
And we have to be really clear here, right off the top. This isn't some abstract squabble over numbers in a spreadsheet. The sticking point was very specific. It's a clash over the Department of Homeland Security and, immigration enforcement.
That's the wedge. It's a policy fight that has completely paralyzed the payroll.
Exactly. So we've got a lot to get through. We're going to unpack this shutdown, but we're also pivoting to the economy because President Trump has a controversial new pick for the Fed chair, Kevin Warsh.
And the markets did not love it.
No, they had a bit of a panic attack. And we're also looking at energy crises on two different continents. A massive winter storm here in the U.S., and then these widespread blackouts in Ukraine and Moldova.
It's a really stark parallel.
We'll also touch on the Gaza ceasefire, which is moving, but painfully, and this high-stakes AI lawsuit with Elon Musk that just took a sharp turn.
It feels like a week defined by standoffs, everybody just digging in their heels.
Okay, let's start with the shutdown. I mean, we've seen this movie before, haven't we? The brinksmanship, the ticking clock.
Yeah.
Usually they pull some rabbit out of a hat at the last minute.
Usually. But the clock actually struck midnight this time. Funding has lapsed.
So why was this time different? Why didn't the usual 11th hour deal stick?
Well, you have to look at the breakdown. Like we said, the Senate passed a Trump-backed deal. Everything looked, relatively clear. But when it got to the House, the wheels just came right off.
And it wasn't the total spending number, was it? This wasn't a fight about the deficit this time.
No, not at all. It was laser focused. It was all about the Department of Homeland Security and not even how much money they get, but what they're allowed to do with that money.
Okay, so it's a proxy war.
It's a proxy war over immigration enforcement, yeah. It's about oversight.
So help us understand the two sides. What's the core friction point here?
Well, you have the hardliners who want to give enforcement agents maximum latitude. Basically, here's a blank check, go enforce the law. And then the opposition is saying, no, wait.
Not so fast.
Not so fast. You can have the money, but it comes with strings. They want strict accountability, specific rules on how people are processed and treated.
And this is where it gets really interesting because you found this other piece of news from the exact same day, January 31st, that I think just perfectly explains the tension.
Yes, this is crucial context, and it got totally buried in the shutdown news. On the very same day, a federal judge in Minnesota rules on a lawsuit. State officials were suing over a surge of federal immigration agents alleging civil rights abuses.
And the judge's decision.
The judge declined to halt the surge.
Wow. So that's a massive win for the administration's policy.
A huge win. The judicial branch effectively said, we're not stepping in. So if you're in the opposition in Congress, you're looking at that and you're thinking, okay, the courts aren't going to stop this.
The legal route is a dead end.
It is, which means the legislative power of the purse, that becomes the only lever you have left to pull. It clarifies the whole strategy.
That makes so much more sense. If the courts won't intervene, you have to try and defund it, or at least put some really strict handcuffs on the money.
Precisely. It's why they're willing to blow up the entire budget over this one issue. It's not just stubbornness, it's what they see as their last constitutional check on this policy.
But the collateral damage is just enormous. Federal services grinding to a halt, contractors not getting paid, this whole shutdown cycle.
It's so inefficient. It costs billions in lost productivity just to plan for the shutdown and then restart everything. It is a very, very expensive way to have a policy argument.
Speaking of expensive, let's pivot to the economy. While Congress is fighting over the budget, the president is making moves on who controls the economy's thermostat.
The Federal Reserve.
Right. President Trump's announced he plans to nominate Kevin Warsh as the next Fed chair. Now, Warsh isn't new. He's a former Fed governor.
He's a known quantity.
Yes, but the market reaction, it was not a warm welcome.
No, stocks slid pretty quickly on January 30th after the news broke. And there are a few layers here to, peel back.
Well, there's that one detail that's a bit spicy, the conflict of interest angle.
Right, that jumped out immediately. Warsh sits on the board of a company that is right in the middle of a big U.S.-South Korea trade dispute.
Which feels messy. A pretty significant complicating factor when you're up for the biggest economic job on the planet.
It's a bad look. It immediately raises questions about impartiality. But honestly, while that's a headache for him, the bigger institutional fear is about Fed independence.
Okay, we hear this term all the time. Break it down for us. Why does Wall Street care if the Fed chair and the president are friendly?
Because the Fed's job is to be the adult in the room. They're supposed to take away the punch bowl when the party gets out of hand, raise rates to fight inflation. And those are often really unpopular political moves.
Of course. No president wants interest rates going up before an election.
Never. The fear with Warsh is that he might be too aligned with the White House. If the market even perceives the Fed as political, if they think rate cuts are about poll numbers instead of economic data, then U.S. credibility just tanks.
And that's not just a theoretical problem. That has real costs.
Huge costs. If investors doubt the Fed, they demand higher returns on U.S. debt. Borrowing gets more expensive for everyone. Mortgages, car loans, everything. Inflation can spiral because no one believes the Fed will actually step in to stop it.
And it isn't just the person at the top, right?
Right.
There was another nomination you flagged that feels like a deep cut, but you said was crucial. Brett Matsumoto.
Yes. To head the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the BLS.
The people who count the jobs.
And, more importantly, the inflation numbers. The CPI. The BLS creates the raw data the Fed uses for its decisions. So look at the picture you're painting for the market.
Yeah.
You have a new Fed chair. They worry is too political, and at the same time, a new head of the agency that actually generates the data.
That feels coordinated.
Yeah.
Or at least it explains the deep anxiety.
It feels like a potential vulnerability. Markets run on trust, and if you start to doubt the integrity of the data itself, well, that's when you get real volatility.
The garbage in, garbage out problem, but for the entire global economy.
Personnel is policy. And the market's worried the policy is shifting from data-driven to politically driven.
It's incredible how fragile that trust is. And speaking of fragility, let's talk about infrastructure. Our physical systems are literally breaking. We had that major winter storm sweep the U.S. around January 24th, 25th. The numbers are just brutal. Over 1 million customers lost power, 10,000 flights canceled.
It was a massive storm, and it really just shows you a vulnerability we prefer to ignore. Our grid is aging, you just take electricity for granted, and then an ice storm hits, and suddenly you're back in the 19th century.
And there's a horrifying parallel to this playing out in Eastern Europe. On January 31st, Kyiv and Chisinau, the capital of Moldova.
Yeah, they went dark.
Widespread blackouts. How does this connect?
Well, this is the link between weather and war. The immediate report said technical malfunctions. It wasn't a missile strike on that specific day.
Okay.
But the grid is falling apart because of all the previous strikes. It's just cumulatively weak. Russia has been systematically targeting the power sector. Then you get sub-zero temperatures, just like in the US, and the equipment just gives out. It can't handle the strain.
And this ties into that strategy you mentioned, the idea of an energy ceasefire.
Right, which is this diplomatic idea of, let's agree not to bomb the power plants. But what's happening is the exact opposite. Russia appears to be using the cold as a weapon multiplier.
They wait for the temperature to drop before they act.
It seems so. The strategy is to maximize civilian hardship. It forces Ukraine to divert resources, it demoralizes people, and it creates a humanitarian crisis. It's a form of hybrid warfare.
Grim. And in the middle of all this, a headline about a U.S. security guarantee for Ukraine being 100% ready.
Ready, but not implemented. It shows diplomacy is moving, but on the ground, the lights are out in Kyiv. It's a stark reminder of how fragile these systems are, whether it's an ice storm or a targeted attack.
Let's stay on that international stage because the conflict in Gaza saw a really significant development this week. It's such a mix of closure and ongoing violence.
It is. The recovery of the remains of Rendvili.
He was the last hostage in that specific group, right?
Yes, the last hostage body to be recovered and identified in this particular phase,
Yeah.
A police officer. Israel recovered his remains and held a funeral. And for the nation, for the families, that's a huge symbolic moment. It closes a very painful chapter.
But symbolism doesn't stop the violence.
No, and that's the tragedy. The truce talks are supposedly shifting phases, but on January 31st, Israeli strikes killed 30 Palestinians. The process is described as inching forward, but it is a very, very bloody process.
And if we zoom out even further, the news on nuclear tensions is just terrifying.
To put it mildly, as of January 30th, reports say the U.S. and Russia are teetering on a new arms race. All those old treaties, the frameworks that kept things in check during the Cold War, They're just eroding.
And then we got the Doomsday Clock update, which is the perfect visual for that feeling.
We did, and I want to connect that to something else. We also just passed International Holocaust Remembrance Day on January 27th. There's a theme here. We're remembering this industrialized slaughter from the past at the very moment the clock is warning us about potential future destruction.
You mentioned a modern fear in the notes about AI and history distortion.
Yeah, this is a growing concern. As we lose the last living survivors of the Holocaust, and at the same time AI gets better at creating fake images, fake narratives, there's this deep worry about the distortion of truth.
So it's not just about people forgetting, it's about actively rewriting history.
Precisely. The fear is that bad actors could use AI to generate evidence that things happened differently or didn't happen at all. It just adds this whole new urgency to the idea of never forget. We're not just fighting memory anymore, we're fighting algorithms.
That's a heavy thought. Let's shift gears to a different kind of battlefield. The courtroom and Silicon Valley.
The billionaires are fighting again.
Elon Musk versus Sam Altman. It sounds like a cage match, but it's a lawsuit over OpenAI.
And as of January 31st, it looks like Musk might be losing. A judge signaled that his company, XAI, is probably going to lose its claim.
Yeah, what's the lawsuit actually about? You stole my idea.
It's more about proprietary data, talent. Musk is accusing OpenAI of poaching secrets to build their models. But the judge seems to be saying the evidence just isn't there.
So why should anyone outside of that tech bubble care?
Because this sets the rules of the road for the most important technology of our time. The outcome decides how talent and ideas can move between these giants. It could speed up innovation or lock it down in silos.
And speaking of setting the rules, California is making moves. We have this state versus federal showdown brewing over EVs.
Classic federalism. On January 29th, California announced it's accelerating its own EV rules and tax credits.
And this is specifically to counter the Trump administration.
Exactly. The administration wants to slow down the EV transition, and California is just slamming its foot on the accelerator.
But can a state really do that? I mean, doesn't federal law win?
Well, legally it's complicated, but practically it's about market power. California's economy is massive. If you're our company like Ford or Toyota, are you going to build two different cars, one for California and one for the rest of the country?
No, of course not. That's way too expensive.
Right. You build to the stricter California standard. So even if Washington says you don't have to, California says if you want to sell cars here, you do.
The California effect.
That's it. It sets up a huge legal fight. But in practice, California often sets the de facto national standard just by being so big.
So when we pull back and look at the whole week, the theme seems to be everyone is digging trenches.
That's it, exactly. It's a week of standoffs. The House versus the White House, California versus the administration, Musk versus Altman, and then globally, the West versus Russia, and humanity versus the elements.
A lot of friction.
A ton. And it just brings me back to that doomsday clock.
Okay, your final provocative thought for us.
It is. We look at that clock and we treat it like it's a forecast, like it's predicting the future. But in a week like this one, with the government shut down and treaties fraying, I have to wonder if the clock is really a measurement of risk, or if it's just a mirror of our own anxiety.
That's something to think about. Are we watching the clock or are we the ones winding it?
Exactly. Is our focus on the seconds to midnight creating a sense of inevitability that actually stops us from solving the problems?
Yeah, on that note, we are going to wrap it up. We hope this helped make sense of a very complicated week.
Stay warm out there and stay informed.
Thanks for listening. Follow WNA Podcast channel for more weekly news and analysis.